I even begin? I guess we're gonna talk a little bit why I got into hunting, how I got into hunting. So I guess we'll get right into it. But I spent a lot of my younger years, like any other kid, following his dad around and just wanting to do everything he did. And I knew once October came around up here in New York, that's hunting season. Every time I'd get done with school, I'd ask my dad, hey, when are we going hunting next? When are we going hunting next? Usually, with working and everything, it was always on the weekends. So I think the first time he actually took me out, I think I was like 10 years old. I know my mom wasn't a huge fan of me going out into the woods. My parents being divorced and everything, they didn't always agree on everything. So yeah, I'd always go out. I don't know, I think like I said, when I was 10 years old, I went out with him the first time. And like any kid, I was real hooked at first, and then an hour went by, 2 hours went by, 3 hours went by, and then you just kind of lose interest a little bit when you don't see anything. But you just enjoy being out there with your dad. But I think I fell asleep, and I remember sitting there, and we saw some birds flying away, like something was running through the woods, and my dad said, hey, there's probably deer coming through. And we were sitting on the edge of a field, kind of on a tree row going up the field, and I remember there was like 4 or 5 small little doe that came out, and my dad asked me, hey, you want me to take one? I said, of course. Being one of my first times out there. So he shot, and it was kind of a far shot, and up in New York around that time, it was shotgun, muzzleloader, and bow only. There were no rifles being used up here yet, and I remember I got real discouraged after seeing him miss, but it also had me hooked because I wanted it to happen. So I went out again with him the next time. I think it was the beginning of December, maybe end of November. Went out, and there's another guy that hunted kind of the top end of the property where we hunted, and remember seeing the guy go up there earlier that afternoon, and then right before dark, he ended up shooting. And to me, being young, at that time I'd never heard a bullet come anywhere close to us, and it was kind of a little scary. Even my dad and I to this day feel like the guy was shooting down towards us. He knew we were there, but there was a couple doe that ran out, and they got to the edge of the field. It was like a 75-yard shot, and if anyone knows, a deer barrel on a old pump shotgun with no scope on it, no true sights on it, I know it's a pretty good poke. So my dad brought his gun up real quick, and he shot, dropped the doe right in her tracks there. And I remember busting out of the chair and running across the field, so my dad could go finish it off and give it a quick expiration. So we got over there, and he finished it, and that was my first up close, in detail, in person kill. Now, from that moment on, I was just hooked. Didn't matter the time that it took to sit out there. Didn't matter, you know, if it was a 5-minute hunt, which, you know, we've all been on those, and or if it was a 5-hour hunt. Either way, it was just the love of being outdoors. So that's kind of, you know, that's kind of where I was hooked. And at a young age, going out with a family, you know, my uncle, you know, my dad, my grandfather, you know, we'd all go out there, and we just enjoy sitting there. A lot of times we'd drive the woods, and you know, going out with my dad, we'd do some smaller drives. And being young, when I was growing up, you couldn't hunt with a shotgun until you were 16, and so that was kind of a bummer. And there was no youth season for gun when I was growing up. Just wasn't. So I, you know, as quickly as I could, 14 years old, I got a bow, and I started, you know, I made my dad buy a bow with me. He didn't get out much bow hunting, but my love for bow hunting was almost immediate. I went to a place called Neal's Archery here in the southern tier portion of New York, and you know, driving by that, I actually drove by it the other day, where I bought my first bow, and you know, that store's not there anymore, but you know, I just remember going in there and buying my first Martin bow, a Phantom 2. I think it was only set to 40 pounds, and you know, something I could pull back pretty easily and sustainably, and just shoot. And I remember shooting day after day after day after day after day, and you know, I made my dad go out that summer, and we put up permanent tree stands. Just kind of took some old wood that we had laying around, built some stands, and put them in the trees. I remember sitting there my very first time I was able to go out there by myself, climbing up there, and I stayed up in my grandparents' house, and I woke up by myself and went out. It was about, you know, I was young, so it was about 30 minutes before daylight. Got out there, got up in the tree right around, you know, daybreak, and you know, for me, I thought that was all you did, you know, because I was used to doing that with shotgun. But yeah, so I got up in the tree, and you know, sitting there, and I see a deer walking across the field, and I thought I was gonna keep going through the field and just go straight across the tree row that goes up the field, and just keep going. And next thing you know, it's a little 6-point, and he's standing probably 30 yards from me under my tree, and I'm facing the opposite direction, of course, sitting on a little stool up on a little wooden platform up in a tree. And you know, I have no idea what to do at this point. No idea. The only thing I could think about was, you know, how am I gonna be able to turn around and get a shot at this deer? And I ended up screwing everything up. I squeaked my stool. I almost fell out of the tree stand. You know, I didn't use a harness when I was a kid, and you know, harnesses were really, you know, never part of my life. And I didn't buy a stand, so I just built my own and climbed up, and I almost ended up falling out of the tree. And so the little buck just kind of jumped off to the side and ran off to about 40 yards from me, and you know, my heart's pounding, just pounding. I felt like I was gonna have a heart attack, you know, and yeah, I ended up shooting right over his back. Got down, went and looked for my arrow, lost my arrow. So of course, you know, welcome to bow hunting. Gets expensive quick. So that was like my first learning lesson, my first shot ever at a deer. But honestly, that little buck, in its own right just kind of hooked me for life. It was pretty cool. I didn't care that I missed. Just being able to take a shot and being able to do what I was practicing, and what I wanted to do, just cool to me. So we'll fast forward. I ended up not I try to keep this part out of my videos and everything, but I went to college in 2000, end of 2009, and played some baseball in college, and obviously that didn't work out the way I planned, and it kind of led me in a completely different direction. After my first semester, the fall semester, my sophomore year, I kind of thought, well, this isn't the route I should be taking, and I ended up coming home for Christmas break, talking with a good buddy of mine, Jeremiah, and that's kind of all she wrote. I signed up for the Army, joined the Army, and that was around December of, actually it was January of 2011, and so I kind of fell away from the bow hunting realm, just not being very successful, and I hadn't shot a deer, or I hadn't recovered a deer. I shot a buck when I was a little younger. I think I was 15 or 16, shot one with my bow and couldn't find it. I gut shot it, just, of course. It's like every bow hunter's initiation is just kind of, it shows you how hard it is and how you have to hit them in the right spot. And to me, that was just a huge learning curve. Felt terrible. It was my first time ever losing a deer, and it was just awful. But anyway, so I joined the Army, left for basic in July, and graduated from that in November 4th, 2011, and ended up coming home for about 10 days right after. And of course it was November, so what I do, I grabbed my bow and I went out into the woods, and on 11/11 at 11 o'clock in the morning, I ended up shooting and killing my first deer ever with my bow. It was pretty cool. I still got the tag from that. Shot a doe at like 15 yards, ended up dropping her, and you want to talk about being hooked. I don't think I've ever gotten out of a tree stand that fast and gotten down. That was pretty awesome. But yeah, again, after that, 2012, deployed to Afghanistan. Didn't get back till 2013. Ended up getting back, I think, the end of May. And so one of the first things I wanted to do, was kind of find a way to escape, just find something that was gonna relax me and calm me down. And it ended up, I ended up turning back to bow hunting, just kind of getting out in the woods and just kind of getting away from reality. So that was my escape. Went out, bought a bow, shot it a bunch, got into the tree. I think I ended up getting my first buck ever with my bow, a nice 7-point. It was a 40-yard shot in the rut, right before last light, and yeah, ran 80 yards, piled up. Had my 2 buddies with me. We dragged them out, and I swear, shooting your first buck is probably one of the greatest feelings ever. For all of you out there who've done it, I mean, and just to have it all come together. Hadn't shot a deer since 2011, and then November of 2013 ended up shooting my first buck ever with a bow. Wasn't my first buck because I shot one with a shotgun when I was 16, 17. But with a bow, it's a different story. You really have to beat them at their own game. I'll never knock gun hunting ever. I'll still take the gun out every now and then. Usually I'll take the rifle out and go try to get some meat for the freezer. But the real challenge to me is with a bow. You've got to really put in the time, the effort, and you got to study these animals. They're not just gonna hand themselves to you usually, especially the more mature deer. In my honest opinion, I think it's harder to shoot a mature doe than it is to shoot a mature buck. I've definitely been rung up by some mature does in the past, which have just ruined hunts for me and kind of ruined the areas for a few days anyway. But yeah, I found my escape in the woods, and a lot of people look for their place where they can go and just get away from everything, and that's mine. I just wanted to share this little story and kind of how I got into it, and currently still in the Army right now. It's been 11 years already, and yeah, it's crazy how time flies. And I had the privilege of going to Tennessee first. Spent about 4.5 years there, hunted there, and was fortunate to take a buck every year there. At least a 3.5-year-old or better there every year. After Tennessee, got to go up to Alaska. Now, there's nothing in this world that'll ever compare to hunting in Alaska. I got to take a moose, of course, a nice bull moose, 2 caribou. I got to take a black bear, a wolf. The only hunt I didn't get to do when I was up there that I really wanted to do was a Dall sheep hunt, and grizzly. I got close to a grizzly bear, but there was 2 of them, and it was right before dark, and my buddy and I just didn't want to mess around with them, right before dark. So anyway, but yeah, after Alaska, went back down to Georgia, and kind of where it all began, and did my time down there, and I was lucky enough to get back into deer hunting again after 3 years of being up in Alaska. And I didn't really know how to hunt Georgia, so that season I took my bow out quite a few times, but ended up taking the rifle out just because I hadn't shot a deer in, gosh, it had been 4 years at that point. So I ended up taking both of my bucks down in Georgia with my 300 blackout. Of course, both of them were in bow range when I didn't bring my bow with me, but I ended up shooting both of them. That was back before I got into filming. The next year, I was able to harvest a buck that hopefully y'all have seen. It was my split G2. That dude drove me wild, just completely insane. And yeah, I ended up chasing him for about a month and a half, 2 months before it all finally came together. It was a hell of a hunt. Just the way everything panned out and kind of how we ended up finding him and everything that night. Just super cool experience. And then, of course, this last season, one of the coolest hunts I've ever been on in my life. I was able to take 2 bucks that I had been watching on camera all season. One of the smaller 8 that I took, watched him all summer kind of grow up. He walked around with a buck I called Goofy, and was lucky enough to harvest him about 15 minutes after I shot my big old 8. So pretty cool story. But hopefully y'all watch that video and kind of see how that unfolded. Unfortunately, I kind of messed up. I forgot that my microphone had died, and I kind of left it kind of half plugged in, so it ended up screwing up my audio, of course, during that hunt, and kind of made me upset. But I was still super happy to get it all on camera and kind of be able to tell the story still. And yeah, it was just a super cool experience. But right now I'm about to head out to my dream state and come here in beginning of July. In about a week or so, I'll be heading out to Kansas for work, and that'll be probably, well, I'm hoping it'll be one of the coolest hunting experiences out there too. Just chasing those giants out there. It's just super addictive, bow hunting especially. So just hoping it all pans out. But I really just wanted to take some time and kind of share where it all started and how it all started, and kind of how I got into doing some bow hunting, and kind of where my love for it came from, and just kind of hopefully relate to some of y'all that watch this, and hopefully some of y'all will have the same drive that I do, and I know a lot of you do, if not more. I'd love to turn this into something more serious in the future, and really get into it. But for now, with work and everything, it's makes it a little difficult sometimes. But yeah, I really didn't want to share kind of what I do for a living, because I didn't. It's kind of a tough thing, to explain to people, and they always end up wanting to talk about that instead, So, but I figured, it'd come out eventually, or it's just kind of a part of who I am, and it kind of built in my love for what I do, hunting wise, and again, being able to get out into the woods is just kind of my escape from reality and from my job, and kind of getting away from the stuff that comes with the job. But I'm probably one of the luckiest, man. I'm not gonna say I'm the luckiest, man, because I know there's a lot of good women out there, but I'm probably one of the luckiest men out there who has a loving and supporting wife who lets me do this. And I know I work a lot, and I work some super long hours, and on my days off, she allows me to go sit in the woods, get up in a tree. And hopefully we'll be able to get her out a little bit more come this next season. Now that my son's kind of at the age where we'll be able to get out a little bit. So it's just, I couldn't thank her enough for dealing with everything. I've been with her pretty much since my career began. Known her my whole life basically, but super blessed to have a woman like her by my side and support me through all this. But I know we're getting a little sobby with the story right now, but I just wanted to share kind of where my love for it came from, and a little bit of my support system, my share, how I got into it a bit. I think most people have pretty close to the same story of their dad or their grandfather kind of passing the tradition along and getting them into it, and mine's no different. My dad was a huge inspiration of mine to get into the woods and kind of chase these guys and chase these creatures, and it's more than just killing. It's super cool when it all comes together, but it's not the killing that's addictive. It's the chase. And being able to put meat in the freezer and kind of just get away from everything. Just go back to our roots, kind of where we all started, and nothing beats it in my opinion. And as I say that, I've got a doe and a fawn walking across the yard right now. Super cool. It's beautiful. Beautiful being able to see them, I could watch deer all day. But appreciate y'all for watching this, and as always, hopefully like the video and hit that subscribe button, and we'll have some more content for you in the near future. It's been pretty hectic moving lately. Haven't been able to do much content or anything, but hopefully in this video you get a little something out of it, and maybe a little inspiration to get into the woods if you're new to it, or maybe if you're not new to it and you just are hopefully getting back into it. Maybe you'll find your love for it yourself again, or just hope you enjoy the story. Little piece of who I am.